In topic, what topic did we just do? 7? Yeah. In topic 7, we talked about different types of policies that influence population. So what we're going to look at in topic 8 is women and demographic change. So how the roles women play in society and how culture depicts women affects the population. The number one determinant in fertility rates across the world is women empowerment. So it's determined by what women are culturally or even politically accept what is acceptable for them to do. So your objective for topic 8 is explain how the changing role of females has demographic consequences in different parts of the world. So, changing social values and access to education, employment, and healthcare and contraception have reduced fertility rates around the world. So let's look at some education and employment factors that for women that influence fertility rates. So if women can and do get an education, they're in school longer, which means they are not getting married at a young age, which delays childbirth. Also, they now have a sense of purpose with a career and aren't rushing to have children. In societies that maybe haven't developed as quickly, the United States was once in this era. Women didn't have jobs, and so they felt that their purpose was to have children and to be a mother. Well, if now women are able to find purpose in a career, then they're not, trying to figure out what they're supposed to do with their life, and so they kind of delay having children a little bit. This was seen in the U.S. between 1950 and 2010 as educational opportunities increased for women. The median age of marriage for women increased from just over 20 years of age to nearly 27. So I have a graph here to show you. Where it's talking about 1950 is about right here. Pretty close to the peak of birth rates. Between 1950 and 2010 over here, you can see how fast the fertility rates fell. And there are different factors for that. But this initial fall right here happened during the 60s, which was like the peak of the women's rights movement. The 60s and 70s. And so the median age of women getting married increased from 20 to 27, which also decreased the birth rate, the fertility rate. Healthcare and contraception in affecting birth rates. Access to proper and consistent health care leads to less babies dying, which leads to not needing any extra in fear of some dying. That sounds kind of harsh, but especially in places and in times where children were needed to work, you had so many, one, because you didn't really have access to contraception, but two, some may die pretty early and you needed more to work the fields. And so with more access to healthcare, there's really no need to have more kids than you kind of want to. As contraceptive use becomes more widely available and socially acceptable, fertility rates will drop. The thing about contraception is obviously it does decrease birth rates, but in a lot of places it's controversial and it may not be socially acceptable. Still today, even in the United States, some religious traditions oppose certain forms of family planning like contraception, and that's okay. Like, we're not bashing that. It just leads to higher fertility rates. That's all that it does. there are plenty, and even if it's not, certain religious traditions, oftentimes now people find contraception maybe unhealthy or different things like that, and so that they may decide not to use it. But in a lot of places, it's just socially unacceptable, and that's why it's not widely used. And in some places, it would be socially acceptable, but they just don't have access to it because maybe they're not as developed as other places. So, those are just the two slides for topic 8. So, go ahead and explain how the changing role of females has demographic consequences in different parts of the world.